Evening. It's, was it 29th today? Tuesday, 29th. Welcome to Cabinet. We've got pretty much everybody here. So the item, first agenda item is apologies. I think we have one.
Yes, we have apologies from Councillor John Andrews.
Thank you. Item 2 is minutes from the last meeting, which was held on the 24th of June, 2025. Any members of Cabinet wish to raise any matters of accuracy? Nope, that's anything, in which case I'll sign them later. Item 3, anybody got any declarations of interest? Councillor Clifford.
Yes, Chair. Apologies, I haven't updated my declarations of interest register yet. I'm a member of the shareholder committee of the Dorset Innovation Park.
Councillor Bartlett.
I'm in the same position, Chairman.
Councillor Sutton. Councillor Sutton's in the same position. I have updated mine, so mine's updated. However, I do have a declaration of interest. So item 11, which is the exempt item on the ERP procurement, I will be leaving the room at that point and handing over the chair to Councillor Biggs because it mentions my employer. So item 4 is public participation. We have one question from the public. I believe she's online. Is that correct, George? So can you go ahead with your question, please?
Yes, hello, Karen Tippins. On the 15th of October 2024, Cabinet awarded over 786,000 in developers S106 funding to Shaftesbury Town Council based on an August 2024 application that included plans later found to be non-compliant with building regulations and cost estimates underestimated by hundreds of thousands of pounds. Since that decision, the project is the Manpits for Manpits Green, east of Shaftesbury. The project has been redesigned by a new architect, which will require a fresh planning application, and that is now predicted to cost over £500,000 more. So that's 500,000 above the original budget. The S106 developers agreement was for community use, yet the first floor now is proposed to be rented to Dorset Council for a family hub, so employment, and also to the national NHS, both statutory employment-based uses. This change was never consulted on with residents, and the land at Manpits Green, east of Shaftesbury, is designated for recreational, not employment use. So my question is, will the Cabinet and/or Scrutiny Committee initiate a review into the October 2024 Cabinet decision in light of these material changes and concerns over planning compliance, cost and the use of public funds? Thank you.
Thank you for your question. Councillor Bartlett's going to answer.
Thank you, Chairman. Councillor Shane Bartlett, Ward Member for Wimble-Minster and Cabinet Member for Planning and Emergency Planning. And thank you, Ms Tippins, for your question. The Section 106 award approved by Cabinet on the 15th of October 2024 included 8 conditions that Shaftesbury Town Council have to comply with before any funding or land will be released by Dorset Council. 5 of these conditions require Shaftesbury Town Council to provide various pieces of documentary evidence. These include a detailed operating plan, project costing and delivery plan, ring-fenced bank account, and external funding grant applications and engagement with community groups. Shaftesbury Town Council submitted this evidence documents on the 18th of July 2025, and they are currently being reviewed for their compliance with the conditions. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Bartlett. So we move on to the next item, which is the forward plan. Any members of the Cabinet wish to mention any comments on the forward plan? Obviously, we don't meet in August, so the next meeting is September. No, nothing, in which case we go on to the next item, which is item 7, procurement of recovery and community resilience contracts. And Councillor Steve Robinson is going to present that.
Thank you, Chair. Steve Robinson, portfolio holder for adult social care, chair of the Health and Wellbeing Committee. I have some good news. Last summer, Dorset Adult Social Care commissioned a piece of work with partners from across the whole of Dorset, the health and care systems, for a system-wide programme to improve urgent and emergency services across Dorset. I am delighted to report that positive progress is already being seen across what is now called the Future Care Programme. In particular, the average length of stay for people waiting to be discharged from a hospital bed on the trial wards has reduced from a 4-week average of 9.9 days on the 7th of April to a 4-week average of 8.1 days on the 5th of June. Work is underway to reduce lengths of stay in community hospitals and at University Hospitals Dorset, and so the programme is on track to support Dorset and BCP residents spending more than 63,000 more days at a home, not in hospital, next year, rather than in a hospital bed. Good news. There continues to be good progress with the delivery of the Future Care programme. In June, at Wimborne Community Hospital, the average open length of stay for patients with no criteria to reside reduced by 12 days to fewer than 20, within 3 weeks of the pilot starting. At DCH, across the hospital, the average length of stay for people with no criteria to reside reduced from 4-week average of 10.1 days on the 1st of April to 6.8 days on the 6th of June. The new transfer of care hub has opened at UHD and work is well underway. As might be expected, bringing together these different work streams to produce some outstanding results has led to some timing challenges, and that's the reason for this paper tonight. Recovering Community Resilience Services are commissioned home care services that provide tailored support to people as they leave hospital or as they recover from a crisis. They're mostly provided to older people and are a critical part of the out-of-hospital support and the arrangements that are in place. The Future Care programme is currently reviewing how these services operate. However, the contracts are due to expire. With no further options for extension, it is critical, both for the individuals and the overall functioning of the hospital discharge system, that these services are maintained whilst our longer-term plans are finalised. This paper then requests permission for a direct award of further contract to the existing very good providers, pending the outcome of the longer-term transformation planning. By delaying the award of contracts and bringing this service within the scope of Future Care, we are positioning ourselves to further coordinate our combined services and thus further benefit the people of Dorset. Now, I should say that although this paper is being submitted at the right time, I should note that it is missing the deadline for publication in the statutory forward plan. On behalf of the service, I apologise for that. We did consult as soon as we knew the chair and the vice chair of scrutiny, and I'd like to thank Councillors Coombs and Somper for their recognition of the importance of this programme and their acceptance of the need to come forward to this meeting in view of the timelines involved. I'd like to publicly thank them for their understanding.
Thank you, Councillor Robertson. I take it there's a proposal for the recommendations, and I will second that. So, questions from non-cabinet members, Councillor Fry.
Thank you, Leader. It's Councillor Les Fry, Dorchester West. How have we got into the position of having no option but to extend this very important contract that has so many people dependent on this support? And we're backed into a corner to having to award until a further option is available.
Councillor Robinson will respond.
Thank you for your question. I don't feel that we are backed into a corner. What we want to do is to make sure that the new services that we're delivering through Future Care are properly implemented and coordinated alongside the award of this contract. We don't have sufficient time to go out to full tender for this process, which we will do as soon as we know what the desired outcomes are. But Future Care is still quite new, and so we're still finding our way. It makes more sense financially and operationally to do it in this way than it would be to start trying to go out to contract for something where we don't quite have the right outputs required yet.
Why was this not done a year ago?
Future Care only started in February this year, and so it's still up and going, it's still becoming operational, and so therefore it's not possible at this stage to identify everything that's happening. I visited the Transitions to Care facility last week, which is outstanding in bringing together, domiciliary providers, hospital providers, doctors, GPs, all together in the same room to decide and support people in their transitions out of hospital. To be able to link this contract into the outcomes of that would be really beneficial to the future.
Anybody else? Nope, I don't see any hands. Any members of the Cabinet wish to speak? No. In which case, does any member of the Cabinet disagree with the 3 recommendations as set out in the paper? No. In which case, the recommendations are carried. I just realised I might just skip over members' questions. Just for the record, there aren't any. So the next item on the agenda is urgent items, and we have an urgent item, and it'll be introduced by Councillor Claire Sutton. Can I just, before you start, there is a very small exempt item part of this paper. Ideally, we can avoid going into the exempt. It's essentially the value of the contract, which is the exempt bit. So we can't really discuss that. Anything else, I think, is pretty much fair game.
Thank you, Chair. Councillor Claire Sutton, Cabinet Member, Children's Services, Education and Skills. Yes, starting off with thanks to the Chair of People and Health Scrutiny Committee for allowing this urgent item to be added to the agenda for this evening's meeting. So under 2.1 of the recommendation, the paper seeks authority to enter into construction contract for works to expand provision at Dorchester Learning Centre. The initial plan was to develop 32 additional places. We have adapted the plan to add a further 27 places, totalling 59 places. 24 young people have places that have already been created, but further work is required to provide the full specialist facilities those children, young people need. The work will also provide 8 SEMH places for children who may otherwise not have a placement or go to a high-cost independent specialist provider. Of the additional 27 places, 12 are primary and 15 are bespoke Year 10 and 11 places based on identified and growing need for such places. The Learning Centre is the only one within a Dorset Council area that currently provides Key Stage 1 placements, so these additional 12 primary places are very much needed. The cost of these placements in the independent sector could be, well, the average is £74,000 per year, whereas a 12-week turnaround place at the Dorchester Learning Centre costs around £7,300. Big difference, clearly. And placements with out-of-county independent providers also, as we know, incur higher transport costs. So this item is being brought now as an urgent matter, as tenders have been received and the Council is looking to enter into contract. The bulk of the work needs to take place during the school summer holiday period, as undertaking it in term time would be exceptionally disruptive to pupils and to the school as a whole, and would have significant health and safety implications. Thus, if we don't proceed now, it will need to be delayed by 12 months. So work in the SEND Capital Programme was initially covered by a delegation given by Cabinet in September 2022 to allow construction projects to enter into contract at the appropriate time. That report identified a number of specific projects, with more projects having been added subsequently following receipt of additional funding from the DfE. Unfortunately, it was not appreciated by officers involved in the delivery of that programme that the additional projects were not covered by the 2022 delegation until approval was requested to enter into contract for this specific project. So happy to take any questions clearly and to move the recommendation in the interests of our kids. Thanks.
I believe Councillor Clifford's going to second.
Councillor Simon Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance, happy to second this, and I'll summarise at the end if that's okay.
I'm ready to take some questions. Just to clarify, so Paul Dempsey, sitting on my right, is the interim chief exec this week. Yeah? Acting chief exec, wherever the title is. So any questions will be answered by Beth Whitaker instead, not by Paul. So Councillor Somper, I see you moving your hands.
You saw me move the microphone. Councillor Jane Somper, Beacon Ward. How will the Cabinet member ensure transparency and accountability in this accelerated decision, particularly concerning consultation with education stakeholders and value for money oversight?
Thanks, Councillor Somper. So we've got transparency and accountability and value for money. Yeah. Sorry, make sure I don't miss anything. So I think the transparency element isn't really an issue in the sense that the original programme was utterly transparent and the additional projects are also out there in the public domain. So I don't think this is about transparency, it's about delegated authority. It's about ticking the box, really, fundamentally. In terms of accountability, there's a delivery board that oversees all the stuff which Beth currently chairs, and Beth may wish to provide a bit more detail on that. Value for money, fundamentally, that's part of all the scrutiny we do in children's services and in terms of everything we provide. But I don't know if Beth, our Corporate Director for Education, might want to add something about the oversight of the programme in that respect.
Councillor Sutton, Beth Whitaker, Interim Corporate Director for Education and Learning. Yeah, so we've been in consultation throughout the inception of the project with the school and worked with all parties on the SEND delivery group, of which we have representation of officers from different areas, including our SEND sufficiency group, and also Paul Scoven, who's sat to the left of me, as part of the estates group. We meet on a regular basis, and we've been monitoring the development of this project alongside our sufficiency strategy for SEND.
Do you wish to speak again, Councillor Somper? No. Councillor Parry?
Thank you, Leader. Councillor Andrew Parry, West Parley Ward. I'm delighted that, of course, the capital strategy for the expansion of SEND provision is continuing. This is very welcome news, and we know that we'll need to address the critical shortage of capacity we have amongst our schools to meet places. However, I am somewhat surprised that this particular matter has come to Cabinet as an urgent item, which would rather, if I could be just a little bit cynical for a moment, suggest that someone's dropped the ball in scheduling of this. Is that a political decision, an operational decision, and was that a matter that sat with which directorate is basically going to put their hand up and say, we got this one wrong?
Yeah, thank you, Councillor Parry. I think that's a very fair challenge. From where I'm sitting, the way it looks is there was an absence of belt and braces looking forward in relation to the additional 10.6 million that we got from the DFE, whereupon the additional projects, including this one, were added to the programme. As to how that fell between the cracks, I don't really want to point the finger at an individual. Well, there isn't an individual to point a finger at. I think it did slip between the cracks. That's true. But we're firmly setting that right now, so that won't happen again.
Thank you, Councillor Sutton. Sorry, thank you. As Director of Education and Learning, I will take full responsibility for bringing this item so late to Cabinet, because this was an additional application of funding through the DFE for capital development, and the application was very prescriptive around the individual projects. I didn't have the foresight to bring it to Cabinet, because the previous spend had already been agreed. So I take full responsibility for that.
Anybody else wish to speak? Councillor Biggs.
Richard Biggs, Property Assets and Economic Growth. I'm reassured that this has gone out to full tender. I think that's really important. It's gone through that process and we're getting value for money. And clearly, I would imagine that if you would delay for a year, you're likely to have a clause, an uplift of inflation, or they may pull out and you might have to re-tender. Can you confirm that, please?
Yes, you're absolutely right. A 12-month delay would incur additional inflationary costs and a re-tendering process. So yeah, yeah.
So while I think it's an unfortunate governance oversight, I think it's right and it's gone through the process that Cabinet are reviewing, and it is totally acceptable to approve this as it is. And there's obviously lessons learned. Thank you.
Councillor Hope.
Thank you very much, Leader. Councillor Ryan Hope, Cabinet Member for Customer Culture, Community Engagement. And I think this paper's got my full support this evening. What we've got here is a journey with multiple stops. It has been already identified, the transparency, the openness, the value for money, that's all part of the journey we've already been on. Where we've come is to almost the final stop of delivery. And before we get to that stop of delivery, we've realised, or the officers have realised, we need to get this approved because it's just met that threshold. So I would actually like to congratulate the officers for flagging that up, for bringing it here, for the Cabinet holder to table the urgent item, because given recent news in this council, this is showing that processes are being reviewed, they've been strengthened, and this council, this administration, the officers are taking control. So I think the officers should be congratulated, the Cabinet member, and I think we should fully support this paperwork this evening.
Thank you, Councillor Hope. I think we're done, so Simon Clifford. Councillor Clifford.
Councillor Simon Clifford, Cabinet Member for Finance. I think we're all in agreement this is a really good scheme. I would like to thank the director behind me for holding a hand up on behalf of her department. I'm sure it wasn't her directly involved, but team members. We are under heightened sensitivities at the moment over some of the culture that exists within Dorset Council. And I think this is a really big step that people are changing attitudes and cultures and willing to put their hand up, as politicians will have to do from now onwards too. So my thanks for that brave move. Thank you. And I'm fully in support.
Thank you, Councillor Clifford. So does any Cabinet member disagree with the recommendations as set out? No? In which case, the recommendations are passed. So the final item on the open agenda is exempt business. So we have two papers following, which are both fully exempt. So unfortunately, the public can't listen to the discussions. To go to exempt business, I need to read out some preamble and get a proposer and seconder. So the recommendation is that in accordance with section 100A, brackets 4 of the Local Government Act 1972, that we exclude the public from the meeting for the business specified in the items below, because it is likely that if members of the public were present, there would be disclosure to them of exempt information as defined in paragraphs 3 of part 1 of the schedule 12A to the Act, and that the public interest in withholding the information outweighs the public interest in disclosing the information to the public. Can I have a proposer and seconder, please? Somebody put a hand up. Councillor Clifford, Councillor Wilson. In which case, I declare the meeting is going into exempt, and we'll have to pause while we stop the live stream for a minute.